Hello, my name is Madison Meadows. I'm a BFA screen actor with a minor in CCI, and this is my presentation on colorism in the fashion industry. What is colorism? The literal definition of colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. This affects the social economic stance, workplace environment, romantic affiliations, and biases within their own community. Colorism also is a direct result of light skin privilege. This not necessarily just affects the African American community, but also ethnic groups outside the African American community. Colorism in fashion. Anna Wintour's era of reign consisted of replacing models with celebrities on the covers of Vogue. Although this brought profit in, it backfired in the way of not providing a diverse group of people. According to the article, Colorism in High Fashion by Malika Handa, between 2000 and 2005, only 3 of 81 cover models were Black, and all of these women had lighter skin: Marion Jones, Halle Berry, and Lila Kibidi. As you turn your attention to the bottom of the slide, this graph represents the shades of women of the cover of Vogue in the last 19 years, on the left being Lupita Nyong'o, and on the far right being Anne Hathaway. This disheartens me in the way that we see the fair amount of lighter skinned people being represented, and only Lupita Nyong'o being on the far left disheartens in the way that we have a lack of diversity, and not only within the Black community, but also in the way that we see Black women. Lupita Nyong'o appeared 3 times in the last 19 years of the cover of Vogue, more than any other dark-skinned model, showing the lack of diversity of dark-skinned models of the cover of Vogue. As we examine the second photograph taken by Johnny Chukwumwindi, the article further goes in depth the differences between racism and colorism, and how colorism also affects a certain group of people within their given subculture. The third image is from Tala Kams and an article that discusses a personal story of what it's like to grow up as a dark-skinned Black woman without any proper representation, and a poem describing what it's like to be Black in America. Growing up as a Black woman in America is like growing up in a house without having any of your pictures on the wall. That is a quote from Button Poetry. Lastly, the photo entitled Soleil Blue by Heinz Longaval is from a Vogue article that depicts the aftermath of Rihanna's Fenty Beauty launch, making excellent progress in the world of makeup by providing a wide range of foundation colors and proper representation. Jackie Aina, for me personally, was one of the first Black YouTubers that paved the way for dark skin representation. Jackie Aina is an African American beauty guru on YouTube with over 1 million subscribers that constantly advocates for proper representation. She has had her fair share of controversies with makeup brands that claim they quote-unquote don't see color. She has lost partnerships due to her political opinions, but despite being somewhat controversial, because of her strong ground, she has found partnerships with other high-end makeup brands that continue to want to advocate for proper representation. She has collaborated with Anastasia Beverly Hills, e.l.f., Too Faced, and many more. She expresses that it goes beyond foundation colors, most likely also eyeshadow colors and lipsticks on the market as well don't necessarily complement darker complexions. For me personally, Jackie Aina is one of the few Black makeup gurus that teach, especially at a young age, what it's like to appreciate being Black and As we discussed in class, Kwame was the earliest recorded to say the phrase, "Black is beautiful." This movement started in 1962 through 1979 as a way to show positive reinforcement of Black women and to shine light on their underappreciated beauty. Grandasa models were a product of this movement to exemplify Black women embracing their natural hair and representing darker-skinned Black women. Kwame has had such an influence on today's world, given that Rihanna even takes great pride of Kwame and draws him as inspiration with her own company. I think, especially as we look at what happened over the last 3 months, it's even more interesting that we see earliest times of movements of the Black is Beautiful movement being so monumental then, and how it has also impacted of the last 3 months of paved the way of movements to come. I think Kwame has been such an influence in the Black community, especially in Black women, to exemplify their beauty and for them to feel appreciated in their natural hair, and especially showcasing dark-skinned Black women. Furthermore, colorism is a prevalent issue within the fashion industry that Black and brown people continue to face. Colorism needs to be recognized and not conveniently placed in ads to gain likability of users. I think especially there's a lot of companies like Nike or Lululemon that have come out with, or sororities in general, that have come out with, Black Lives Matter statements or Black empowerment statements, but don't necessarily mean the things that they say, but say it for a more advertising perspective and to get you to buy things and to, in a way of a consumer perspective. And I think especially in the fashion industry, to have proper representation of colorism needs to not necessarily be for the consumers, but in a means of wanting to make change. Colorism is a extreme issue that is quite underrated, that is also very, very much so expressed within the Black community, within their own community, and expressing light skin privilege is not necessarily something that I feel like we talk about as much, as being closer to white is seen as more socially acceptable, especially when we look back in terms of 400 years ago, when we see how the lighter skin Black people would be more so perceived as house slaves or the ingenue. Colorism in general, also when you look at movies and media, like you see more of the ingenue is light skinned or feminine or delicate, and then she has a darker skinned sidekick that's ghetto, loud, and ratchet. And those stereotypes have been implemented in how we choose who we want to represent for brands, and it's kind of been an implemented bias that we've kind of set for ourselves. That's kind of trickled down in today's society. But unfortunately, that is the society that we live in, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to live in it forever. Questions to consider. Do you see colorism in other industries outside of the media? Has colorism affected you? No matter how much representation we enforce, do you think we will change the ingrained bias already set within our society? Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you the best, and I hope you have a great holiday. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.